Your manager just dropped a project in your lap. You have to roll out a new digital shop floor reporting system. You have one site, 40 people, and 4 months to do it. You did not choose the system, someone else above you made that call. Now, you have to make it work. At this moment, you probably feel one or two ways. You either have no idea where to start, or you have already started thinking about a kickoff meeting, a timeline, or maybe even writing an email to the entire team. If you are already moving, I want you to stop for a second, because that instinct is exactly what I want to talk about. Over the past 12 years, I have seen and been a part of many change projects in different companies, in different sizes, and in different industries. One of the most common reasons these type of projects fail to deliver any tangible results is usually not the technology, the method, or the budget they are allocated. It is often because that the person in charge starts working and executing before they really know what they are supposed to do or what they are expected to deliver. They start building a plan before they have any real mandate or understanding of what good actually looks like. In the next 20 minutes, I want to show you what to do in the first 48 hours of a project or initiative like this. I don't want to focus on the textbook examples. I'd rather give you the version that actually works in practice. You will leave with a one-page document that ensures you and your boss or sponsor are on the same page before you plan or start executing on anything going forward. Here is what I often see when someone is given a new change initiative. Most people jump straight into planning and execution. And to be honest, I get it, because usually there's a pressure, there's a deadline, and a lot of people are probably watching you execute this project. Doing some things a lot of times just feels better than doing nothing. So you start thinking about the rollout, who needs training, and what is the first few weeks are going to look like. But I think there's usually a problem here, because you are moving forward before you have answered some basic questions that matter for every future decisions in the project and its potential success. Those questions could be, for example, why is our company doing this specific initiatives? What does success really look like? What is the real obstacle of this project? What is the one questions that we actually need to answer before we do anything else? And if you cannot answer those questions by day 2, you are basically running blind. And these problems usually don't show up right away. They show up a couple of months into the projects when somebody starts asking some tough questions like, why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this project? What are we trying to achieve? And everybody starts giving different answers. And that confusion almost always starts within the first 48 hours, when no one pushes for real answers and everyone assumes that they are working from the same picture. The first 48 hours is really not about building a plan. They are for building a mandate. The mandate is a one-page document. It has 4 elements, and its entire purpose is to make sure that you and your sponsor or your boss are looking at the initiatives in the same way before you make any single planning decision. Think of it as a document you walk into your boss's office with and ask, is this the initiative that you gave me? Am I understanding this correctly? The mandate has 4 elements: background, current situation, complication, and we have key questions. So the background, this is where you establish the full context of the initiative. Why is our organization doing this specific project or initiative, and why are we doing it now? What has changed, or what pressure built up that put this on the agenda? What is the strategic priority that this initiative serves? And what does good look like when it is completed? What will be measurably different when we are finished with this project? Unfortunately, this is also the element that a lot of people either skip or keep very vague. And it is also the one that is costing them the most, because if you cannot really articulate clearly what you're trying to achieve and why it matters for you, for your organization, and the people that you are going to have involved, then you will not be able to bring people with you. People do not really resist change because they are difficult. They resist it because nobody has given them a compelling answer to the question of, why are we doing this, and why should I really care about this? And then we move on to the current situation. This is in some ways your starting point. And you don't have to overthink it. Just write down what is already true and what has already been decided. The system is picked, the timeline and budget are set, the site is chosen, reporting is still on paper. And these are the facts. Now, this step forces you to see what you actually know and what you are just guessing. And most people guess more than they realize in these first 48 hours. Now we are moving to the complication. And this is where it gets very important because the complication always starts from the current situations. Once you have written down what is true, you ask, but what makes this difficult? What is making this hard? What is the however? Because that's usually how you start the complication. The system has been selected and the budget is approved. However, the 40 people expected to use the system every day had no say in choosing it or be a part of the process. They have been working the same way for years. The organization has never run a digital rollout at this scale before. And that is your complications. It is not just a list of risks, but it is one honest statement about what makes the journey from here to there or from A to B truly difficult. It is also very important to not soften this complication to look confident. The complication you name now is a problem you can plan around. The one you skip becomes the crisis that you are going to be managing in month 3 or month 4 of the project that you have been handed. And then we have the question or the key question. Given the background, the current situation, and the complication, what is the single question this initiative needs to answer? This is not a diagnostic question about what is wrong. It is the question that when answer gives you and your team a clear direction forward. In a rollout like this, it might be something like, how do we implement this system and get 40 people to adopt and use this specific system and technology that we are providing, given that they have no say in the decision and the organization has never done anything like this before. In a different type of project or initiative, for example, if you had been asked to investigate which system to purchase rather than to roll out and implement one that has already been chosen, the key question would look, I would say, very different. It might be something like which digital solution best fits our operational needs and what offers the highest chance of adoption. So the key question changes shape depending on the type of initiative or projects that we are dealing with. But one thing is clear, that there should always be a question and it should always come from the complication. By hour 48, you have probably filled these 4 elements, and it does not need to look pretty, like you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but you need to be able to walk into your boss's office with this one pager and ask, is this what you want me to do? Do we have the same understanding of this project and your expectations of delivery? If they say yes, you are set. If they say no, you have just saved yourself a month of wasted work. And that simple conversations is the most valuable thing you can do within the first 2 days of any new change initiative. Another thing that is also very important to highlight is that you need to get the real brief. You need one focused conversations with your boss on day 1. And this is not a handover. This is not a briefing document. It's a real conversations where you don't leave the room until you get some very specific answers to some very critical questions. I have seen this so many times that most people, they tend to leave the first conversations with some very vague terms. For example, like we need to have better visibility. We need to improve reporting. And in some ways, these sounds like answers to what you are trying to achieve, but they are just placeholders. The problem is everyone fills in the blank differently. Your boss thinks one thing, the team lead thinks another, the people doing the work have a third idea, and nobody realizes that they are talking about different things. So here are the questions you need to push for in these initial conversations to make sure that you are aligned on all fronts. Why are we doing this initiative and why are we doing it now? What change or what problem has built up to the point where it is happening this year rather than last year or next year? What does good actually look like? What is the definition of done, of completion? And here we are not talking about just the system going live, but what is actually different in the way things operate. What will you be able to see or do that you cannot see or do today? What is in scope and what is not in scope? Who owns training, data, IT infrastructure, and the transitioning period? How much authority do I have and mandate do I actually have to execute on this project? What decisions can I make without coming back to you? And what requires hard sign-offs. Has anyone else tried to change this process before, and what happened when they tried to do it? And there's one question that a lot of times can feel uncomfortable to ask, is that what is the one thing that would make this initiative fail? What are you most worried about? That last question is one of the most important one in this conversations, because the answer tells you what the real complication is and not just the official version that you have been delivered in a PowerPoint. You need to get that real answer. This is usually the concern that your sponsor has been carrying quietly since the day the decision was made. Most people never ask it because it feels like you are looking for the problems before you even have started. You are not. You are looking for the thing that is already there and that would eventually surface, and that you rather know now from day one than have to discover a couple of months down the line. And if your boss cannot tell you what good looks like or what the definition of done is in plain language, that is your first risk. A project without a clear goal is not a project. It becomes just an installation of a new system. And an installation do not change anything. So make sure to write this down and make agreement your first task, your first job in this project. From experience, you should never leave this meeting with some vague words. Push until you get something specific. If your boss doesn't know what they are expecting, then you are already being set up for failure from the get-go. So if they don't know what to do, then they have to go back to their sponsor and their boss to make sure that it is very clear what the expectations of you and the deliverables of this project actually is. And now we come to the point where you write. It does not have to look good. It just needs to be honest and clear. Fill in the background with what you learned in that conversation, the strategic context, the reason this is happening right now, and what good looks like when this is completed. A gap you can name is a risk that you can actually manage. And now you fill in the current situation with what is already true and already has been decided. System selected, timeline set, sites confirmed, current state paper-based processes. Just the verified facts, not what you think is probably true. And then you fill in the complication with all honesty that you can. Start with your current situation and ask, what is the however? Write one clear statement, or maximum two, of the real obstacles involved within this project. The thing that makes the journey from A to B generally hard. Write the version that is actually true and not the version that makes the initiative sound more straightforward than it actually is. And now you're filling the question. Given everything above, what is the single question that this initiative needs to answer in order to move forward? Frame it as an open-ended how do we question. It should feel like once you have answered this question, it will give you and your team a clear direction. And wherever you have a gap, make sure to write the question and not a guess. The question you cannot answer are not problems. They are your agenda for week one. They show you exactly where to go next. One thing a lot of time we neglect or don't pay attention to is going out there and finding someone that has done something similar to what we are going through, the specific project that we are working on. So I would highly recommend that you take the mandate that you have created, like this one pager, and you go to someone that has done something similar before and ask them, where am I wrong? Not where does it look good, but where am I wrong? What am I missing here? Is there something that I have not seen? In a lot of cases, 30 minutes with the right person now is worth more than 30 hours solo planning. When you are speaking with someone, you need to make sure that you are paying attention to what they are questioning. If they push back on the background, you have just learned how this initiative looks from above. If they challenge you on the complication, you know what people who have done this before are actually worried about. If they reframe your key question, now you know what success really means to the people who will decide whether this worked. I think a lot of times every edit they make is information. Use it before you commit to anything. And nowadays we also have tools as AI. You can take this mandate, these 4 boxes, to ChatGPT or Claude or any other large language models and ask them to critique it and give you feedback on it. Not just confirming what you already believe, but make sure that they are looking at it from a critical perspective with some critical eyes and give you the feedback that you need to move forward. Before these 48 hours are up, you should send one message. You should not send a kickoff announcement or a project plan or a long introduction. Just send a short, calm message to the team and the people that you are going to be working with. Tell people three things. First, that you are in charge. Second, that you are working. And third, that they will hear from you again soon with something more real and tangible. It could be something like, I have been asked to lead the rollout of this new shopfall reporting system, and I am spending the first week trying to get a clear picture of the scope, the expectations, and what we need to get right before we start any planning and execution. I will come back with a first working structure and the immediate priorities within the next week. And I would say that's it. Keep it simple. Notice what the message does not do. It does not promise a timeline you cannot deliver. It does not describe an approach that you have not checked, and it does not commit to anything that you do not understand. So the first 48 hours are not about making promises. They are for figuring things out and getting a clear understanding. Often, when it comes to change projects, silence in the first 48 hours is not something that is very neutral. It kind of makes people nervous, and nervous people start rumors. And rumors that create resistance before you even start anything. So one calm message coming from you can stop or hinder a lot of these rumors, a lot of these nervousness. I want to give you a short example here. A project manager, let's just call him Thomas for the sake of it, got almost this exact projects that we have been talking about. A new digital reporting system. One site, 40 people, 4 months to go live. His name was on it, and he was the one who was supposed to deliver it. Thomas, he was not new to these kind of projects. He had delivered projects before, so he kind of trusted his guts, and in the first 48 hours, he developed a plan based on what he believed to be true. He picked the milestones, made a training schedule, and sent an introduction message to the team. It looked like he had everything under control, but he never really had the conversation with his sponsor. What Thomas did not know, because he never asked a question, was that the real reason for the project was a quality audit in 5 months from now. The company needed to demonstrate to an external auditor that it had stopped using paper. So that means that the go live date was not just a milestone, it was actually a compliance deadline. If they missed this deadline, there would have been some real consequences. And that changes everything. It changes your priorities, how you talk to the team, and what you do in the first month. He also never really confirmed the scope. He assumed the training was his job to put in his plan. But the sites themselves, they had a training coordinator who expected to handle this on their own. She was not happy to find out in week 3 that Thomas had already started planning her job. And the production manager, whom Thomas really thought was on his side, actually had doubts about the entire system and the entire project. He never said anything in the meetings. He was just waiting for someone to ask him, but nobody actually did. And none of this was hidden information. It was all there from day one. And Thomas had really not looked for it until he started his planning. Now, imagine if he did this the right way. He talked to his boss in hour 1 and finds out the real deadline is the audit. The background is clear. The company needs to demonstrate compliance before the formal external review. And the current situation is that the system has been selected, the timeline is set, and the site is still running on paper. The complication is also very clear. The people who need to use the system every day had no say in choosing it. The organization has never run a digital rollout of this caliber before, and the timeline is very tight with no room for delays. And in this case, the key question becomes, how do we implement this system and get 40 operators and supervisors to actually adopt and use it before the audit date, given the constraints we are working with? The one page built in the first 48 hours changes every conversation he has had from that point forward. He takes the mandate to a colleague who has done this before, and she clearly tells him that the biggest risk is not the technology. It is the team leads and the supervisors. They either make the new way stick or let people drift back into the old ways of working. Thomas then goes back and adds this to his complications, and this also changes a lot of the things he does next. Then he goes back, he sends one calm message to the team as we discussed, and he does not promise a plan he does not have. And then when he walks into his boss's office with this one pager and asks, is this really what you want me to do? The answer tells him more about the next 4 months than anything he could have planned for before on his own. So the thought here is get your bearings first, have a clear understanding before you start any planning, and do that every time with any new initiative or any project that you take on. So just a small recap here. So the first 48-hour framework has one job. It builds a mandate before you build a plan. The mandate has 4 elements. The first one is the background. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing it now? What does good look like when we are done? And the current situation is what is already true and what has already been decided. This is just the verified facts. The complication is the however, the real obstacle that makes the journey from here to there genuinely hard. And then we have the question, the key question, the single question this initiative needs to answer to move forward. So get the real brief first, one focused conversation with your boss, push past the vague words and leave with specifics and not just placeholders. Then build the mandate, keep it rough and honest, write down the gaps. Every question you cannot answer shows where you have to go next. Then pressure test what you have created with somebody who has done this before and ask them, where am I wrong? Then use every edit as information. Then before the 48 hours run up, send one calm message, mention that you are in charge and you are working, and you will get back with something real very soon. By hour 48, you have one page that tells you and your boss whether you are talking about the same initiative or something completely different from each other. And that alignment is the most valuable thing you can produce in those first 2 days. Everything else, I would say, come after. If you are still here watching this video, here's what I want you to do. Download the mandate template from the link below. 4 elements, 1 page. If you are working on a project like this, fill in what you know from your current brief. Then look at every statement and ask, did I confirm this or am I just guessing and making assumptions? Mark the guesses and the assumptions, and where they pile up is basically where you need to go back to your boss and make sure you get more alignment and clarifications. Then book that conversations. Don't do it tomorrow, do it now as fast as possible. And if you are not on a project right now, I would say just for the exercise of it, do it on a project that you have already finished. Fill in the mandate as you wish you had done at the start of that project. And then ask yourself how many of the problems that showed up in month 3 were actually just unanswered questions that you didn't ask from day 1 and 2. That question answered honestly will change how you start every initiative going forward. If something here made sense or you have any questions, drop it in the comments. This is where the best conversations really happen. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, press the like button and subscribe to the channel.